All right, we're
All
back.
right, back
Hey,
again.
that's right, back
Guess
again.
who's back?
It's us, Thomas and Tyler.
Hey, TNT. It's
Dynamite. Yeah, very nice. We're
Oh, it
here.
wasn't even planned, guys. It wasn't
No,
planned.
that was off the top of our brain right there. Uh,
It wasn't a remake.
no, no. Uh,
Foreshadowing.
yeah, it's foreshadowing because we're talking about the new Nosferatu remake, or as Willem Dafoe pronounces it in the movie, Nosferatu, or whatever, or however he says it.
Oh, I haven't practiced this at all. But here we go. Nosferatu.
Huh?
That was like spot on or no?
Kinda, yeah. I also
Really?
like how he says vampire, the vampira. It's very fun. Uh, but yeah,
You
we're
think
here.
there's people out there who just say like that normal? And since we're like silly Americans, we're like, he's saying vampira.
Oh,
And that's just
probably,
how you're
yeah.
supposed
I'm
to.
I'm sure like the way he pronounced it is probably either like how it was pronounced back then because Robert Eggers is super like likes to be historically accurate, or like that's how it's supposed to be pronounced and we just say it our dumb American way. Um
Yeehaw.
yeah. But anyway, we're here to talk about Nosferatu, the 2024 remake. I guess it is the remake of the 19, I think 22 is the year it came out. The Nosferatu movie that we have covered. I'll put the link in the description. We watched it a while ago. Uh so it's a remake of that, but it's also just uh like it's a book. So it's also just a movie about the book as well. So it's kind of one of those, it's a double thing where it's clearly there's stuff from this movie that is an homage to the original, but it's also, based off the source material as well. But it's directed by Robert Eggers, who I believe we have covered every movie he's done on the podcast. I know we did an episode of The Lighthouse. I think me and Maverick did an episode of The Witch. I don't think you were there for it. And then me and you did The Northman. That I think to this day is still the longest episode we've ever done. I think it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes long.
Really?
Yeah, I think it just barely beat out Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or whatever. That was the longest for a little bit, and then we did The Northman, and I think The Northman beat it.
It's crazy because a lot of people don't like that movie, but
I don't know. I don't know if it's a lot of people don't like that movie. I think it's just a lot of people didn't see it. Like I think just no one watched it. Like I think most people that I've heard have seen it liked it. I just don't think anyone watched it. It's very weird. I don't know why that movie didn't do good. But this is Robert Eggers' new flick, Nosferatu. We were very excited for it. I think every episode we've done since we've been back, we've mentioned it at some point, talking about how we were looking forward to it. And it was a Christmas Day release. It seemed like we were seeing the trailer for it forever. But it finally came out. We went to see it. Unlike The Northman, our showing was basically sold out. Every seat was taken. Tyler was sitting next to a lovely older lady that was making sure that Tyler would not make out with her during the course of the movie. I was sitting next to a young lady who was constantly just getting as drunk as she could be, just solo by herself, just drinking. Uh, and a guy fell asleep in our movie for 45 minutes and was snoring. So that was that was good. But people came to see it, and we saw it. Tyler, what do you think of Nosferatu?
kind of put me on the spot. It all depends. If you know the story, uh, listen, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10, but it's just because I know the story and they didn't do enough to blow me away and like take this out of my mind, right? Like, there's a lot of things that you could rewatch the original and then be like, cool. And then when you watch a remake, you're like, they have to do enough to make the transform it, but still tell the same tale. But ideally, when I think Dracula vampire, and we had this conversation before in the car, and I think Gary Oldman, Bram Stoker, or even the Universal guy with like the weird tux. But anyways, those images pop in my head. Fucking Morlock will not, or whatever his
Warlock,
name is.
please, Count Warlock.
Orlok, yeah, Orlok will not be like my go-to, and that's sad because the movie's done really well. It's made really well. The cinematography on it's fantastic. The acting is lackluster, but like it's a good movie, especially if you're like a younger person or not as old and cranky as me, and you don't have like the other films in your mind. But if this is your first like foray into vampires, other than twinkling people, then it will. It's gonna you're gonna enjoy it. But like if you're an old curmudgeon like me, you're gonna be like, Bram Stoker did it better. So for me, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I think for the average person of like 25 to 35, they'll probably give it more of like an 8 out of 10. But again, the cast was weird. I think Robert Eggers is kind of getting in. Well, what's Christopher Nolan? Is that the Dark Knight guy?
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan sticks with the same actors. I feel like Robert Eggers is doing the same thing, but he's like picking his friends and stuff, and he just isn't as good as picking friends.
I don't know. I mean, this movie, I think there was only two people in it that had been in his other movies.
Well, like William Defoe's brilliant. Like he can put him in every single movie, and I'll
Yeah.
be fine with it.
Which
But
I
like,
think is what he's
why?
trying to do. I think he's trying to put him in every movie.
Like, well, like the main female in this movie or the main lady,
Lily
which I
Rose
didn't know.
Depp,
Yeah, which I
Johnny
didn't
Depp's
even know that's
daughter.
who she was. But I feel like she got the role just be nepotism or whatever.
The only other thing I've ever seen her in, she was in like a very small bit role in Tusk, the Kevin Smith movie. Um, well, it's funny enough, and she had a scene with her dad. But that was the only thing I knew her from. Apparently, she was the female lead in that show that The Weeknd made, The Idol. Do you remember that on HBO? That it lasted
No.
like 4 episodes and then they canceled it. And I don't think they even finished like airing.
Like already shot episodes, they just didn't put them in.
Yeah, yeah. So that's all I knew her from. Um, I
But again, this might just not have been a role for her, right? Like because a lot of people just didn't seem to fit in their roles. Like her husband, her,
yeah.
like a lot of people. But anyways, before you like die,
Uh
go
huh.
too deep into it. What did you think of the movie?
I really liked it. I enjoyed it more than Tyler. It's funny because the last couple movies, I feel like we've gone and seen them, and I'll glance over at you and I'll go, "Oh man, Tyler's not liking this one," and then like we'll get done and you'll be like, "That one was great," and I was like, "Oh," so now I'm literally where I'm like, "Oh, I can't judge how he feels about it." So I had no idea how you felt. Um, but yeah, I think when we came out of there, I said that I was an 8 on it. I think since then I've gone down to about a 7, 7.5 on a good day. Um, it's I'm trying to remember the exact moment in my mind, but it's a little long. I think there's some stuff in there that it's like okay, we didn't need this probably. There's a distinct and once again I can't remember where it was, but I remember a scene happened and it felt like the entire theater was like okay, and they were super in on it. And then the scene ended and it went to another section of the movie that was like had nothing to do with what you had just seen, and it kind of felt like everyone deflated and we're like, oh, okay, now we gotta watch this. Um, yeah, but I really it's my third favorite Robert Edgers movie. That's what I feel like that best sums up how I feel about it. Like it's good, but it's not. Which to be fair, The Northman and The Lighthouse are so high up there. I don't know if he would ever get, especially The Lighthouse. Like, uh, but I agree with you. The acting, it was the first Robert Eggers movie where I felt like none of the people like really fit into those roles. Like, yeah, I didn't like Lily Rose Depp. When she does her like, when we get into like her possession stuff, I think she's good. But at the same time, she's just doing, the movie Possession.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a very
For some reason I thought you were asking the audience and not me. So I was like, oh, I'll wait for them to answer.
there's the very famous like her getting possessed.
Yeah.
um and since then like it's constantly like people just keep trying to do that, and that's what it felt like to me every time she was doing it. It just felt like trying to do an
Well,
homage
she did
to
that famous arch back thing, right?
yeah, and the and
Yeah.
like and so I liked her when she was doing that, and she would go in and out where I'd be like, okay, she did that scene really well, but then like just the dialogue I felt like was there's that one scene very early on where Nicholas Holt fucking Beast or Nux from you know Fury Road, and he's in a bunch of shit, but he like leaves the room and she's like talking to herself. She's like, he has the position, they'll take him away. I was like, okay. Like, I felt like because the first movie was a silent movie and it would pop up like the slides in between telling you what was happening. I felt like that's what that was like, and I was like, I hope that's not the whole movie where people are like telling you like what's happening or whatever. But yeah, I didn't like Nicholas Holt at all. Like, Willem Dafoe's great, which is hard for Willem Dafoe to be bad. He's I really
But did
liked yeah.
I have a weird question?
Uh huh.
William Dafoe's pretty decent in this. Did he seem completely out of place in comparison to everyone else? Like, and I know, slight spoiler warning, William Dafoe is like a scientist based on the occult, which back then is like unheard of, right? He's the first guy to like understand witches and stuff like that.
Uh
And this movie isn't like historically accurate or anything. So like, it's not like, well, he invented, no, like not
yeah.
like that. But he was a scientist who were like, before science, other things happened, blah blah blah. But they did the weird trope, which I appreciate, but also hate at the same time. Of like in movies where they're like, oh, that dude's possessed, and the guy like doesn't believe him, and you're like,
Uh
God, just believe him. But then you have the other end of that spectrum where someone pops up and goes, that motherfucker's possessed, and they're like, oh, let's kill him. And like no one questions him at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And it seemed like Defoe was in that second category where everyone was just like, cool beans, let's
Uh
go. And like, I don't know, it just seemed like he stole every scene he was in, and a lot of the scenes
yeah.
he shouldn't have stole. Like,
Uh
but he's him. So do you say, hey, stop being
yeah.
Defoe? Or, I don't know.
I really like the dude. I need to look up his real name, but he was the dad in The Witch. And funny enough, me and Tyler have been playing Diablo 4, and he's Lorath. That's his name, and Lorith, I think is how they pronounce it. But one of the Hamadr. Look at that, we remembered. And I was excited to see him, and he felt out of place for me because everyone like was talking with these exaggerated like voices and shit, and he was just talking with like his normal voice. So it was
Well, no,
like
to be fair, it's a very recognizable voice.
it's a great
Like,
voice, by the way.
yeah.
But I liked him. I was very hit or miss on Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. There was a lot of hype going into the movie about his, how he had to create this voice and how much it took out of him, and this dark place he went to, and the makeup, and he's unrecognizable. And I told Tyler in the car on the way back, I was like, I fucking hope he's unrecognizable. He's playing a goddamn a vampire dude. But I was very hit or miss. His voice ends up kind of becoming just Go ahead, Tyler. Hit us with the Count Orlok voice.
Oh, I can't do it. I was picking my teeth with a tooth. But it's just so like I have a deep voice, but his voice, and I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen him do it live or anything like that, but I'm
Uh
pretty sure they use effects on it because his voice doesn't get as low as mine. But it's just the regular gravelly voice, like if you're trying to talk like a cowboy, but he rolls his R's.
He
So he's like, "Oh, you are not ready."
not suck
Yeah,
your
like
blood.
if you ask any of your lame friends to do a Godfather impersonation, and they just roll R's, then Marlon Brando fat version with rolling R's is
Uh-huh.
what Orlok sounds like. So
Yeah,
you owe me a favor. And
yeah.
there's weird scenes where they say he has this ailment, which I'm guessing is, I guess slight spoiler warning, the curse.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of times where he's just breathing,
Just
and it just sounds
breathing.
like him growling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like long spans of it where you're like, dude, just fucking take a cough drop, like anything. Like it,
uh,
but again, it wasn't bad. But
yeah.
in this movie that's full of dialogue and not much action,
Mm-hmm.
and
Which makes sense for the
time
original
period.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, like this could have been they could have made it so much better.
Yeah.
They could have added action. They could have added
I thought
like craziness.
I was like the little bit they added, I was perfectly happy with. Like like I didn't feel that way that you felt, where I was like, there needs to be more action. Um, it was just but also I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I wanted to say, because you were talking about how you think of like Bram Stoker's Dracula when you think vampire and stuff.
Yeah.
Funny that when I think vampire, I think Nosferatu. I love how the original Nosferatu looks with the fucking like faint the like rat teeth in the front and everything. Like I love how that original dude looks. And we'll talk about how this guy looks when we get into it. But Nosferatu is and it's probably because even Robert Eggers addressed it. He was probably the first vampire I was introduced to through SpongeBob, with "Who's flickering the lights?" and Nosferatu, and he's up there. And so I've known Nosferatu, my whole life. But so that's who I think of, and it was also very nice. I had this thought too while we were watching. Is it was very nice to see like a scary vampire again. I feel like I can't remember the last time, like we spent so long where it was like Twilight, it was True Blood, there was another, the What We Do in the Shadows, like
Oh, you found that?
yeah, where like it's all these, they're vampires, but they're not vampires. But this one is like a straight up old ass gothic, like creepy vampire story. It's also, and I think you probably agree with me on this, it's also the only one where I feel like Robert Eggers tried to make like scares. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Because
like jump scares and stuff.
the Witch, there's none of that. The Lighthouse, there's certainly none of that. And The Northman isn't a horror movie. It's a fucking Viking, like war. It's a cool ass movie. But yeah, this was the first one where I was like, oh, he's making a horror movie. Like there was, I didn't jump, but you felt it for, in your soul for a second. Unfortunately, he does use the same scare like 8 times throughout the movie. Same
Classic rookie horror mistake.
Same like sound and everything, I think, every time it happens. But I was like, oh, he's making a horror movie right now. And I was very excited for that because, he's lived in kind of that in between where, it's more what you don't see that scares you rather than in this movie. It's like, bam, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Spoiler warning for Nosferatu. We're going to ruin everything about it. I highly recommend you go and see it. So you can have your own opinion. Plus, I want Robert Eggers to make all the money in the world, so people keep letting him make movies. The studio he made with this, I don't even know. Like
Is it his?
the first 2 were A24, and then the Northman was like, I think was Universal. It was like it was a real studio. And then this one, it might have been his. It was like some weird company.
Last Stop or something? I don't remember. It looked like a hotel key. It was like a diamond.
Yeah, and then there was another one that was a ship, and like, I don't know, but for some reason I assumed this movie would be A24, but I guess I should have known because there was way too much marketing, and that's become kind of the meme about A24 movies is they don't market their fucking movies. They're just like, it's coming out tomorrow. People are like, what?
Yeah. That's what I feel like Heretic kind of did, but it was like a month.
Yeah, like, yeah. But anyway, spoiler warning for Nosferatu. We're going to ruin everything about it. Let's see, you've been warned.
Studio 8 was the name of the studio.
8. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I guess we should start with talking about how this dude has a mustache, which is the most important part of the movie, I think.
Well, So the film starts out and it's weird because you see Homegirl in the past, and she kind of sells her soul to a devil because she's lonely,
Yeah.
right? Now there's a lot of weird paranormal stuff, and I know this just because I research everything because I'm a dork.
Mm-hmm.
But I know this from like other things. But like certain people are enlightened or opened, to like spirits and demons or whatever. I don't know what the term's called.
Yeah, well, even like Willem Dafoe even has a line for her, like near the where he's like, "Was he's like I merely adopted this, but you were born into it."
Yeah. Oh,
He's
okay,
like
Bane.
Bane.
Yeah.
I was born in
Yeah,
the dark.
he said, I'm a visitor to this land where you grew up," or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
something
that.
like that.
And so she's like, I want to say psychic. Maybe that's the best way of saying it, or she's like in tune with nature or whatever.
She talks about like she predicted like the day her mom would die, and there was another one she predicted. I don't remember, but yeah, she has like a sense about these things.
But in her angsty teenage years, where no one understands her because they say she has the melancholy, which is just like depression, I guess.
Uh
But
huh.
she reached out for whatever, and she ended up, it's kind of like a pen pal or a chat room on fucking AOL. And she ended up hooking up with this ancient Dracula
Well, it's
demon.
cool the way they make it sound is like she awakened him from his sleep,
Yeah.
which is cool. Like I don't know. There's like first off, I wonder why was he asleep? Like why was this vampire dude asleep? Uh, but yeah, it's cool that like just this random. They talk about like she was much younger, so we don't know how old she was. But yeah,
Well, it
when
said 5 years ago, right? Or something like that when
yeah,
they do the transition.
okay,
So
um,
let's say like 14 to 19, but this is like the 1800s or something like that. So she's probably more like 12.
yeah. Let's be yeah.
Probably.
But just her like unknowingly awakening this
Yeah.
fucking.
Or
Also,
knowingly. You don't really know. Like it's
yeah,
real vague, but
that's the scare that the first one because it's like it's the beginning of the movie and it also isn't that when she's like floating and that's the first time this movie's super horny guys like super
yeah.
horny um and that's the first taste you get of it because she's like floating and she's going like oh oh like
Yeah.
just
She just
floating
moans nonstop the whole
a
movie.
lot.
And
Well, I think because fucking Count Orlok's dicking her down and like her her dream her dreams or whatever. Because she goes to like that, you know, there's a scene later where Willem Dafoe's like interrogating her and her pupils don't dilate. And he's like, second sight, she's not here anymore. She's seeing a different land or whatever. And I
yeah.
imagine that's where, but yeah, she floats and then there's just a hard cut to Count Orlok on top of her, and it's just like, "Arr!" And it's like, oh shit, you're. That was the first time where I was like, oh, this is a horror movie, and yeah, then it's like 5 years later. It's always funny when there's random time jump cards like in a movie like that. Uh, yeah, he has a mustache. Back to that. Uh, I was very curious how they were gonna make him look. Uh, and they kind of went. It's weird to say this because he is a fucked up looking dude, but they kind of made him more human looking than he does in the original one. Like the mustache covers up. You don't get the fangs in the middle of the mouth, and I was very upset about that. That was my one biggest gripe. I kept expecting there to be a scene where somehow like he loses the mustache or it gets like you know cut or something, and then you see like the fangs in the middle, but you never do. Uh, but yeah, he's got a mustache. There you go. That's all you need to know about this movie.
I mean, it's weird because I, it's hard to like base height off people, but it's Orlock, right? Like
Count Orlok. Yeah.
Orlock. So the Count Chocula, he's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah. He's a
Like
big dude.
he's super massive but frail and like hunchback and everything else. And there's times where he stands up and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And he's got like the classic vampire strength or
Uh huh.
whatever. his whole thing, like I know there's like different kind of magics and stuff that people use, but his seems to be shadow.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
everyone in the story is like, I'm trapped in his shadow. Watch
yeah.
out for his
Beware the
shadow.
shadow. There's one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when he like is at the window or whatever, and he like stretches out his hand, and his the shadow of his hands going over the town, and as it passes like all the houses, you start hearing like everyone screaming and like, and it was just like his shadow terrorizing like this whole village. That was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
It was pretty good. There's a couple scenes like that where everyone just kind of loses their shit
Uh,
and like he goes berserk or whatever. I guess and this is like just my weird segue. My problem with this movie, and you kind of hinted at it earlier, is where it felt like two movies in one, and they never really bridged that gap
hmm.
because it was like this angsty female or woman like trying to she kind of cheated on her husband, and then the old boyfriend shows back up, and then she has to do what she has to do to like get rid of the loser.
Yeah,
But and then there's this another one where people are fighting a vampire. So
yeah.
like, I get it. Like I know the connection, but I think they spent too much time on her and not enough on like the movie.
I don't know. I mean, that's that's what I remember from the first one. Is like, dude goes off, gets stuck in that castle, and then the next like 50 minutes is her, like, and the count like moves in next door, and he's constantly like perving on her and stuff. Which they didn't do a lot of that in this movie. Instead, when he moves in next door, he just shows up in her bedroom, but maybe he doesn't, but maybe he does. Like you're never really quite sure like if he's really there or he's not until he shows up and he kills people, and then you're like, I guess he was there that time. Um, but so I was, I was waiting for it. I knew eventually there would be the switch, Uh, but yeah, I mean, my favorite part of the movie by far is the whole like lead up to him entering the castle. Like the moment Thomas, shout out,
Hey, shout out.
played by Nicholas Holt, the husband. The moment he shows up at like that inn with all the gypsies and stuff, which once again, I told Tyler this. Like, I remember the first one, like, everyone just laughs a lot for no reason. And they're early on in the movie, it happened a lot. And then it goes away after a little bit. But early on, people would just be laughing for no reason. And the biggest one is he gets to that inn, and there's the weird, like, the dude, like, dancing in front of him. And
Hold
then
on, what was that?
it
What
was,
was that?
and then, yeah, all the gypsies start like laughing, just randomly, and then the innkeeper comes out and he's like, "Get out of here!" And I was like, "Okay, that was
I don't know if
weird."
he was the innkeeper, or, like the mayor or whatever. It was weird.
I don't
Yeah.
know, but yeah, and he stays the night there. But then during the night, he watches this like weird ritual where they have a virgin on a horse, but they're going to kill a vampire in a grave. Like, very weird mix up of
Yeah, I don't
things
know
there. Uh,
don't know what the nude virgin was for, but
yeah, but he
and she
fought.
looked super young. I'm hoping that it was just like a young looking lady, but
Hmm.
I was like, oof, this is kind of awkward. But
Um, yeah, and they go and they find like they're like the vampira's grave, and they open it up and it's a dude, and then they're like, we'll kill him, and they stake him, and that dude was totally a vampire, because he like and like spits up blood and stuff. And then I didn't even hear what he said, but Nicholas Holt like yells something at them, and then he wakes up and he's in his bed, but his boots are all covered with mud. And then he comes out and it's all abandoned, and he's like, my horse.
but and like I don't know. There's a different word than gypsy because apparently gypsy is like offensive, but
Well,
I
that's
don't
what
know
they call them in the movie. So that's
Yeah,
what I'm calling them.
my whole thing is and again, this is like weirdness. Is like, did they have magic? Like, how did fucking Beast magically transform back to home in the bed and blah blah blah. Makes sense? Like
I don't
I don't
know. Well,
understand that part because it
clearly,
wasn't Orlok.
yeah. Well, clearly they had no trouble using chloroform back then, so maybe someone came up behind him and chloroformed his ass.
Like I said, it was just a weird point in the movie to where it's like, why would Orlok show him that, or why would he be
Well, I don't
like,
know because Orlok clearly had been around because when he's leaving, he leaves his wife Lily Rose Depp with his friend, who I don't remember the guy Aaron Taylor Johnson. Is that his
I
name?
don't
I
know,
don't
he's
know.
the cool guy from Bullet Train
He
though.
is a cool guy from Bullet Train. He was kick ass. He was also Quicksilver in Avenger: Age of Ultron. Then he got shot up. He's done a lot of stuff. He's Craven the Hunter.
He's
Uh,
really good in this movie. I
He's
like him
also he's going to be in 28 Years Later, so we'll cover that when that comes out. Um,
if we see it.
yeah, we'll see.
We're gonna see it.
Yeah. Uh, his wife also, funny enough, I was looking at her. I was like, I recognize her from something. And I looked up. She was the bad guy in Deadpool and Wolverine that I don't think you've watched yet, but that's where she's bald in that movie. So that's why I was like, oh, okay, that's why I didn't
A
recognize her.
slight aside, and the audience can agree or disagree with me.
Uh huh.
All chicks pretty hot, right? Like just in general, if you see a
Bald
bald
chicks?
chick, you're like, yeah, like completely bald chicks, they're pretty hot. I
I
don't know.
don't know.
It's a hot take. Sorry, hot take.
I don't know. I like short hair, but I don't. I've never gotten bald.
Man, what? Doctor Strange, the fucking whatever her name is.
You?
Anyways,
Oh. um. You have
every
weird
cancer
taste. There was a.
movie.
There was a.
Yikes.
Oh. There was a trailer with like Kate Blanchett, and you were like looking real hot, and I was like, you got anyway. Um.
I sit next to one old lady, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
just hated for life.
But
Yeah,
but yeah, he drops her off there, and then like the night before he leaves, Kick-Ass has like they have two kids, him and his wife, and they're expecting another one. Uh, and as they're going to bed, the little girls are like, "Oh, there's a monster up there. I hear him. We hear him breathing under the bed." And so clearly, to me, later on, is like, "Oh, Count Orlok was there." Like, or was it a
well,
shadow because it
maybe.
was with where the girl was?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So I don't know how much influence, because I mean the whole thing is the dude works for him, the guy that somehow this guy is the head of realtors or whatever in town, uh, but he's also working for Count Orlok. He signed a pact with him, so he sends Nicholas Holt there to sell him a house, but in reality it's just because dude knows that he's married to the girl that he signed this fucking, thing with, and it's all part of this plan. So I don't know how much Count Orlok affected the events leading to his castle. But, after the gypsies and stuff leave, his horse is gone, so he's just walking down this fucking road. Great shot where it's like it's getting dark and there's like all these different pathways and stuff, and it's just him walking down this one road. And I was curious how they were going to do this because in the original movie, I remember Count Orlok just shows up on his wagon and it's just him, and it was like, oh, and he just gets in. I was like, be kind of weird if they did that here. So instead, they just send an empty wagon that turns and its door opens up by itself, and Nicholas Holt is just like, I will get in. Like, that was another point where I was like, okay, is he getting in or is he like under the influence of something that's forcing him to get in, He's
Yeah,
very he's very dumb. Like
so like early in the movie, they talk about how he has money problems and he had to take a loan from his buddy to cover his expenses and all
but
this
when he
stuff.
mentions to his buddy's like, who cares?
Yeah, but I feel like he's just he just got married. He's trying to like start off, and
Yeah.
he's like, this is what I got to do to like make sure he doesn't have a family. She's not pregnant or nothing, but
They're planning on him being more financially stable before they
yeah.
start a
Yeah,
family.
so like in his mind, he's doing what he has to for the future of his family. So he's like, you got to go here, and he's like, okay, and then he goes, and then it's kind of what his driving force is that one, make money for his family, and two, to I don't know, secure his future, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
there's where the dude that sends him is like, you sell this house and you'll have the position here, whatever it is. But the Lily Rose Depp earlier in the movie, she had that where she's like, he already has the position. They're gonna send him away or whatever. Yeah. Uh, but he shows up at the castle, and then we meet Callan Orlok for the first time. He's kind of hidden in the shadows. It's nighttime. Callan Orlok is like, "It is dark. My assistants have left for the evening." uh, and I mean, instantly from the get go. To be fair, I don't think it would have helped if he was like, "I'm gonna get the fuck out of here." But I mean, this dude's fingers are like 7 inches long. They're like crooked and fucking, um, like clearly there's some weird shit going on here. Uh, and he sits him down at the table, and he's constantly like popping up in different areas. Like he'll be over here, and then the next thing you know, he's pouring wine for him next to him. Uh, he like makes him eat bread, and then the dude's like cutting the bread, and he cuts his finger, and there's like a close up of Cal Warlock's eyes where he's like, "Watch what you are doing."
But it's crazy, right? Because like, I don't, they don't make a thing out of his like bloodlust, right? Now he has a whole village of gypsies living right outside his castle. So the problem, he probably has no issues just going down there, snagging a
Yeah,
couple, getting a quick bite, like pretty much fucking door dashing on his
yeah,
doorstep.
yeah.
It's like free delivery. He's like, bet.
I kind of thought, keep what you're saying. I kind of thought when they were going out with the naked lady, I was like, oh, they're gonna feed him or feed her
Yeah,
to Count Orlok, but no.
like yeah, like this is how we keep him from just taking
Yeah,
people in the night or whatever.
yeah.
Um, but there's other weird things, and these are questions I have. So when Tom looks at me and I'm watching a movie, which is kind of creepy that he admitted to that, but anyway, I'm always
Just taking a temperature check of how we're feeling.
my mind is almost always just going through all these fucking scenarios, right? So, and this is a weird aside, but we'll figure I'll get into it now since we're at this point, even though
Uh-huh.
we're only like 10 minutes into the movie. No, it's like an hour. I take that back. It's like an hour until we get to this point. But anyway.
Tyler was talking about how the first hour needed to be cut out. I didn't. I felt the first hour for me flew by. Like the whole lead up to him getting to the castle, I loved it the whole time.
The movie should have started when he got on his horse and rode out. I didn't need to see the whole thing with him and his friend and all that.
They spend a while establishing. It's not that long, but
It's not, but
yeah.
when a movie's like 2.5 hours long, you look for it.
You start looking for
you can
stuff.
trim.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the gypsy town, and again, sorry about the name. I'm telling you, there's a name we're supposed to be using, and it's not.
Well, who's gonna get mad at us? Gypsies? They're not gonna see this.
Anyways, there's a whole thing to where they go and they kill this vampire, right?
Yeah.
And he's obviously a vampire. They stake him, and he just spits out all the fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not blood. It's like it looked green to me, but I'm colorblind, so it might have been blood.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I didn't ask. The problem with having a full theater is I can't lean over to Tom and go, "What the fuck is this?" Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
That being said, the old lady next to me constantly went,
There. Yeah.
Oh.
I wonder because she came in and was talking about my son loved this movie, but he said it's not scary. And then it was by far the scariest movie Robert Eggers ever made. So I was like, I wonder how she's feeling. And every now and then I would hear like, oh. So I don't know how she handled the movie.
But why is there only one vampire in the whole movie? There's two, but one gets staked at the beginning.
Uh
I mean, I guess you could say that his boss kind of is one, but like you expect him to have like legions, like and this is again me.
Yeah.
And Bram Stoker, like in Bram Stoker, he has like I think it's like 6 females. They're all vampires and they're like blah blah blah. So like I said, it's just really it's not strange.
Once again, going off of Nosferatu logic, I expected just him. So.
Well, they showed the ability that he had other vampires. Like, if it was just him, cool. I would be fine with that. But the fact that they staked one just probably to show that they know how to kill vampires, and
Uh-huh.
how the guy, later, I get why they did what they did,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, okay, so he is making some,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't
Yeah, well, I
matter,
think, yeah, well, the Count Orlok's little minion dude who sent dude, I'm pretty sure like he thought he was going to be made into a vampire, but Count Orlok all he cared about was Lily Rose Depp. This
Yeah.
whole movie is just Count Orlok being super horny for this dude's wife. Like he just wants to bang this dude's wife. So, noble quest. Um God, there was they have their little discussion that night. And once dude cuts his finger, I'm pretty sure like dude hypnotizes him, and then because I think he wakes up and he's got the bite like on his chest or whatever, and he's like, oh. This reminded me a lot of Barbarian. This next part, and I love this too. Is you get there and it's totally dark. All the lighting is just from the fire and shit. And so you're in this vast like ballroom dining area, whatever you want to call it. And you're like, oh, in this fucking castle, and you're like, this nice ass castle this dude lives in. And then the dude wakes up and he comes out, and the whole place is a fucking shit show. Like, it's like crumbling walls, like decaying, like the whole castle. It looks like no one's lived in it for, it's a complete fucking piece of shit. And it reminded me of Barbarian, where the lady like pulls up at night, and then she comes out that the morning, and all the houses around her are like boarded up and like crack addicts everywhere and shit. Um, but yeah, it was one of those like, hey, everything's not what it seems, at first and shit. Uh, but I love that part. Um, but yeah, he's in that castle for a while because dude sucks his blood a couple times. Uh, he he sells him the house, but maybe also in the contract is for his wife. They
Yeah,
never
so
fully go into it, but they make it sound like his wife was part of the contract.
he signs the house contract, and then Orlok gives him his contract. It's written in his tongue, his old people's tongue,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
not like old people like senior citizen, but like the tongue of his peoples or
Uh huh.
whatever. And it's this really fancy form.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at it, it's like embossed lithium or whatever. Anyway,
Uh.
the shit I noticed, I promise. But so he's like, here, just sign this. It's just a formality, and it's like one of those secret things where if you get like a mail ordered bride, and they're like, hey, sign this paper, and you sign it, and then you realize, oh shit, and then she kills you in your sleep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where he's like, hey, sign this form. Here's a bunch of money, and he was like, bet, okay,
Yeah.
no
He pulls
problem.
out a heavy sack of gold and drops it down,
And so he just signs it because he's like, bet, and go to get
and he
bitches.
wants to get the fuck out of there at this
Yeah.
point.
He even tries to leave immediately
As soon,
afterwards.
yeah,
He's
he's
like, I
like,
gotta go.
Count Orlok is like, you should rest, and he's like, actually, can I leave? I want to get the fuck out of here, and he's like,
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
So he just got tricked or bamboozled, which is weird because, again, a spoiler. The whole thing of this curse or whatever it is that Lily Rose Depp, which I don't know her name.
I think it's Ellen. I know that the other dude's wife is Annie. I think her
It's
name
just
is Ellen.
they keep yelling Providence the whole movie, and so like I'm like, what? I don't know if you noticed that, but
I
they're just going
don't.
Providence, Providence,
Yeah.
Providence. Anyway, so she has to give herself willingly to him, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
can't just swoop in and take her. Gotcha, Tom, showing off that tricep, bud. This is a gun
Yeah,
show.
you like all that meat?
Bam. That's a lot of meat on that ham. Anyways, yeah, but so they have that like stipulation, but then Orlok's like, I'm just gonna buy this lady anyways, and it's like I know he
Yeah.
does it to use it against him later, right? So he could be like, your husband sold you for repentance or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But like, it's just weird that he would resort to those tricks.
Yeah. Like especially so she awakens him. They make the pact where it's supposed to be she belongs to him. I don't really understand why Count Orlok wouldn't have just come and gotten her immediately, like when she was, whatever age. Because then time goes by, she meets Thomas, they get married, and so now he's like, you broke the pact or whatever. And so now he like wants to take her back and make a new, agreement or whatever. But yeah, I don't understand why he just wouldn't have come and gotten her, immediately or whatever. But uh, yeah, he forces dude to sign a contract. Um, he doesn't let him leave, and then the next morning, the guy like he wakes up again, and there's another bite like right over his heart this time, and he's like, "Fuck this!" So he tries to like run out and get out the front gate, but it's locked. So he goes and like there's a door that's boarded up, and so he takes off the board, goes inside, and he finds Count Orlok's like fancy ass coffin that he sleeps in. Uh, and he opens it up, and we get a look at dude's body. And I did like this where he's like a decaying body, like he's got maggots and shit like eating his fucking torso and stuff. Um,
Here's my thing though. I didn't realize who that was.
oh yeah,
I mean, I know he was like, oh, and it was fancy, but I thought it was just another random dude.
oh yeah.
So like when he popped up and shit kicked off, I was like, what? The security around random people.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and so he's like, oh shit. So he's gonna leave, but then he like stops and there's a pickaxe, and he's like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. Which I don't even know if the pickaxe would have killed him, but whatever.
Well, he said it had to be cold steel,
I guess.
which I don't understand what cold, like, you can't touch it? Like, you couldn't make a steel pick and then
Yeah.
use it? Yeah, no.
One of my favorite. Have you ever seen the rest? It's Hulk Hogan, and I think it's the Legion of Doom is like terrorizing them, and he's in like this weird place, and there's like a waterfall or whatever, and it's steaming, and so he puts his hand in it, and it's supposed to be he thinks like it's supposed to be like it's cold water or whatever, and so he puts his hand in and he goes, it's not hot. It's so funny, dude. Hulk Hogan, oh my god, that dude might be one of the funniest dudes of all time. Unintentionally, he thinks he's super serious. uh um But yeah, he tries to stab him with the pickaxe, but the dude fucking catches it. I was waiting for it because in the original, I think when he first finds the coffin, that's when you get your first like one of your iconic scenes where he like levitates up out of the coffin. In this one, he kind of just like jumps up. He's hanging dong. He's naked. He's got these three wolves that hang around him. That are real cool, and there's one shot like later on in the movie where it's him in the doorway with the wolf sitting next to him and he's silhouetted. But besides that, the wolves are kind of. I was hoping for more cool stuff from them, but they're kind of pointless. They chase the dude, but he gets out. But then he's there like still that night, like he still hasn't left. Oh, that's
like,
when that's when it happens. He opens the door and the dude's standing there with the dogs.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a while where it's like best part, worst part.
Uh,
But this is like the worst part of the movie for me is the death of Thomas. It was so bad.
the death of Thomas?
Supposed death of Thomas.
Oh, when he jumps in, yeah.
Well, when he climbs out on the ledge and just falls off.
Yeah.
It's so lackluster, and then it's like 4 days later, and everyone's like, he's dead, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, this is horrible.
Once
It could have
again,
been so much cooler.
it could have been, but once again, I remember that was like I'm pretty sure that's how he does it in the first one. He like jumps
Yeah, because
out.
it's the 1920s. They
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
They
else.
probably threw
Like,
a real guy off of a castle into
Yeah.
water though.
Yeah, he just did the stunt.
Yeah.
But like I said, it is it. This is the problem with remakes, though, right? It's like, do you stay that true to the original, or do you like kind of smooth out the edges a little?
I told Tyler, besides like how horny it is, which obviously they weren't doing that in 1922 and stuff, I was surprised at how like loyal or how similar it was to the first one. Like it was beat by beat where I was like, oh yeah, this is how the first one went. Which I don't know why I expected it to changed a lot. Like there's definitely some stuff in there that was added. Um, and we had the where I wasn't sure like what was from the book or what he just created. Uh, but yeah, it was very similar to the first one, surprisingly. Um,
And let's be honest, that's the risk or the chance you take with these type of movies, like with the remakes in general.
mhm.
Because like this remake was almost shot for shot. What's the one with the two guys? Funny Games
Funny games, yeah.
was almost shot for shot. What's the one we watched recently with fucking
Speak no evil.
God. Yeah, Speak No Evil.
Yeah.
Like was almost shot for shot.
Till
What
the
kept it.
ending. Yeah, then
Yeah,
they changed the whole ending.
and like all those films, I think for the most part we give a pass to, and they're pretty good, pretty decent. And then we watch the original and so on and so forth. But then you have films like Rob Zombie's Jason, or is it Halloween?
Halloween, yeah.
And then they didn't he redo Jason too?
Yeah.
And
He
you
didn't
have
do that, but
those,
yeah, they did. They redid
yeah,
Jason.
and you're like, what the fuck are they doing? They've ruined the. So
No.
there's a fine line of following the source material
Yeah.
and then when to
That Friday 13th remake
change it.
rules.
It's not bad. The one with the secret tunnels and stuff.
Yeah, and he's like running and shit.
Yeah,
That one
yeah,
rules.
but the Halloween one, not so much.
Halloween one, not so. I remember liking it more as a kid, and then when we rewatched it, I was like, eh. So,
So, but like I said, it's a hard thing to do to remaster a masterpiece,
uh-huh.
and there's no way you're gonna please everyone. Um,
Yeah.
but like I said, in this one, I think they just leaned on the sex angle too much.
Yeah, you had that, I didn't feel like as soon as it started, I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be pretty sexed up. And then once I accepted that, I was like, every time it happened, I was just like, yeah. There's a lot of talk about who's coming, where they're coming.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that. There's a scene. It's right before he leaves the castle, Thomas, where Count Orlok like is sucking his blood, and even they like start floating like up from the bed. Um, I think that's more like how he feels because then it cuts and Count Orlok is naked on top of him, sucking blood from him, and he's definitely grinding down there. Uh, so and they held on that shot for a while.
yeah,
It was like 10 seconds. Just,
yeah. And it was really weird because like he was almost like a puffer fish when he was inhaling. Like his whole body was
yeah,
expanding,
yeah,
and it seemed more like a bug or something,
like a
like a
leech.
lamprey. Yeah.
Yeah,
So like I said, there was some weird stuff in it.
like
They do that same shot like 3 times, and after the
yeah,
first time, I was like, okay, I get it.
yeah. Like I said, I said I was kind of iffy on the Count Orlok performance, but there is a lot. There is cool shit about him. I like that. Um, the breathing, I ended up liking. Especially there's the one like later. I think it's the end of the movie where he's like in front of the Lily Rose Depp, and he just like starts like hyperventilating almost, where he's like, like um, but I liked how fucking huge he was. Like, it's with Thomas in the castle. It's like they're looking at the contract, and dude is standing right next to him, and Count Orlok is like head to head with him, and you're like, okay. And then he stands up. He was like sitting down the whole time, and now he's like towering above him or whatever. Uh, but yeah, After Thomas escapes, then we go to Lily Rose Depp, and that's like the next 30 minutes probably until we see Count Orlok again. Like eventually, yeah, they think that Thomas is dead. They haven't heard anything from him. She's going in and out of these possession, seizures. They've got her like tied down on the bed. They're fucking chloroforming her. Uh, what's his face? The guy from The Witch is her doctor, or I guess he's the town doctor. Um, as this is happening, that's when the guy who's the realtor, the boss dude, goes crazy, and he like gets arrested, and he's in the fucking cell, and he's got this little pigeon, and he's like, "Oh, this is my lord's gift" or whatever, And I remember this being in the trailer of like the shot of him like going down, and I was like, I wonder how much of this you're gonna see. You know, turns out you're gonna see all of it. He just bites this dude's pigeon head off, and it's just a lot of spurty blood. Uh, the granny next to you did not seem to enjoy that, Tyler. um, that was one of the ones where I remember like out loud her being like, "Oh," like, and I was laughing because Tyler was already not enthused about having this lady sitting next to him. Uh,
It's the worst feeling is like just having someone sit next to you, and the whole time she was like eating snacks and just feasting.
yeah, I know.
And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, this is cool. Like
Uh,
trying to focus on this movie,
yeah,
and
and then
I don't know.
after he bit the head off, the guy had a line where he goes, "Now, why would you do that, friend?" And the lady next to me uh, laughed at that, and I was like, "Yeah, that was funny, lady sitting next to me. I'm glad you laughed at that." um, but yeah, and he's crazy, and the like I said, the next 40 minutes or so is just them dealing with her going in and out of her,
Psychosis.
psychosis. This is when we finally get Willem Dafoe because they can't diagnose her, and so the witch guy is talking to Kick-Ass, and he's like, "Well, I know a guy. He was my teacher, but he got kicked out, and he's in town now. But it's hard for me to recommend him to people." And they go and see Willem Dafoe, and he comes in and asking her, and we do the whole dilating the eyes and fucking she got a second sight and shit. That's when we get the big like, well, not the big one because there's a bigger one later, but you get the first like where she like comes off the bed and she, which is impressive. I don't know how much of that is like they had like a rigging system on her that like pulled her body, or how much of that was Lily Rose Depp just doing that herself.
I'm gonna be honest. A lot of times, and you can correct me, but I don't think we'll ever know. A lot of people try to like, well, that was all physical effects. That was all me. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll never really know, right? Like, there's a scene where she gets up and her tongue's like halfway out of her mouth on the left or whatever, and I'm almost positive it was all CGI. But they're gonna be like, nah, she did that.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, well,
Yeah,
you have like 4 CGI people on your fucking cast, and you paid them $1 million, but yeah, I'm sure that's what happened.
Yeah, that's like the big possession scene is her fucking eyes roll up and she's like, ah! Like, yeah. But yeah, and so that happens, and eventually Count Orlok. What happens first? Does Thomas show back up before Count Orlok gets on the boat, or does Count Orlok get on the boat before Thomas?
He's
gets
on the
back?
boat because they do this like fake out where the boat crashes and she like runs out and she's like, "Hey, he's arrived," and you're not supposed to know if if she's talking about Orlok or Thomas.
Yeah, I assume she was talking
And
about Thomas because she seemed
Yeah,
happy.
it was Thomas.
Yeah.
She was running out to him.
There was a great Count Orlok gets on the boat once again. This is how he gets on a boat to come over to wherever they're at.
Which is crazy because I don't know how a boat travels faster than a horse. And you got to remember, Thomas was like laid up in bed for a while because he was almost dead.
Well, I mean, yeah, he shows up and he just falls. He falls off the horse.
So it's like the dude. They said it was like a 6-week journey, so I'm guessing it's 3 weeks there, 3 weeks back. So it's like dude made the whole journey back after being laid up in the church.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But yeah, he comes on the boat, which I was waiting because that was a big part of the first one, and they just straight up made a movie based on this section of the book. That was the last voyage of the Demeter. That I don't think Tyler ever watched it. I watched it. Huge fucking disappointment. Awful movie. I remember being really excited for it. I think me and Bags even, we were going to the movies, and it was between that and that Talk to Me movie, and we ended up going to Talk to Me. And I'm glad because I watched the last voyage of the Demeter, and I was like, holy shit! Like, there's just no. It's a vampire movie with no cool vampire kills, or no. It's like, oh, by the way, I said how it was fun seeing like a scary vampire again. I guess that movie did come out, but that vampire was like, it was like a bat. It was like a creature looking thing. It was weird. You should watch it so you can tell me that it was bad. Um, but yeah, he's on the boat and the captain. They're like the plague, and there's a dude. And he's fucking dead, and another dude starts like vomiting, and the captain's like, "Everyone get out of here! Lock the door! Lock the door!"
Quarantine.
Yeah, and so they lock the door, and finally, one of these guys like we get a scene of like them like throwing a body over the side and stuff. One of these guys I think starts to figure out like, hey, we got that weird box down there with that symbol on it. There's probably a fucking vampire in there or whatever, you know? So he goes down there to kill him, and you get a cool like he's walking up to the box, and then there like the lantern is like swaying back and forth, and you only get like a second of seeing like Count Orlok behind him like moving into position or whatever, and then he like opens the box. It's just a bunch of rats, and then he turns around and Count Orlok's there and fucking rips his throat out and shit. Uh, yeah, and so he kills all the people on the boat. Boat crashes, all the rats. The town goes into quarantine because they're like, it's a plague ship. Everyone starts, dying. Uh, Count Orlok goes and visits Lily Rose Depp, and he's like, hey, you're coming with me, bitch. And they have like this super intense where they're like getting closer to where it's like, oh, they're gonna make out, and then she's like, no, and she pushes him away or whatever. And so he's like, all right, you got 3 nights to submit to me, and like first night he's like, I'm gonna kill a bunch of people. Second night he was gonna kill more people, and the third night he was gonna kill Thomas. And that's
That's when
basically.
the movie kicks off. That's when shit starts getting good.
Oh, you
Well,
think so? That was kind of when my enjoyment started waning. Well, that's
well,
not
like
true.
when the boat shows up is
Uh,
like when the movie starts getting good. Like,
well, that's definitely when that's like all coming to a head.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, yeah, a bunch of people just dying of the plague. The crazy guy, like, he kills. I don't even know how he did it. Like, he's like he was in a chair, like a electric shock therapy chair, and he had tipped over, and he was like, "Help me!" and he's like foaming at the mouth. And a guy comes in, and somehow he like pulls the guy down onto him.
He unties his arm
Okay.
on the left hand side, and then he goes to get his other arm
Uh
to
huh.
like release him from the chair. And I think he grabs him and then bites his neck out.
Well, he bites his neck out, but it seemed like he had like stabbed him because the guy when he lands on him is like, oh, like already like he's dying, and I was like, what's happened? But yeah, but he bites his neck out. He escapes. There was a great, I think you laughed at it too, where he's like running into the moonlight. He's like, ha ha ha. He's like,
Yeah, yeah, like a
they're-
naked toddler just.
yeah, yeah.
There's
Uh,
a really weird camera scene there too, because the chair's on its side, and the guy goes to help him, and the camera's normal,
uh,
but then the camera slowly turns to where the dude in the chair is sitting upright. That makes sense. Like,
yeah, yeah,
so it takes a quarter turn to the left, so then you can't really tell what happened.
yeah. Um,
It's confusing.
yeah. So the plague kills
It's neat,
people.
but confusing.
They're trying to find. They Willem Dafoe learns that guy was in, a pack with Count Warlock, so they're trying to find him. Uh, there's a weird scene. It's on the second night where Nicholas Holt like wakes up and he's like, "Get off of me" or whatever, and he like pushes Lily Rose Depp off of him. And so they do a fake out scare where Annie, the other one, is like walking, and she looks at the stairway, and the camera like moves and like stays on the stairway, and then it moves back to her, and then Lily Rose Depp is standing behind her, and it was like uh, and she's like, "Can I sleep with you tonight?" And at first I thought she was possessed by Count Orlok, because they had already shown like Count Orlok could get into her and she would talk, or Count Orlok would talk through her and stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is all a setup. And then they go and they lay in the bed, and they're like, the lady's Annie's talking about like how much her friendship means to her, and she's like giving her this cross, and she kisses her on the forehead, and Lily Rose Depp is like, thank you for loving me, and she's like touching her hand. And naturally I was like, oh, they're about to like make out. Like that's where I assumed the movie was going, but they don't. And then they go to sleep, and she has another nightmare about Count Orlok. And then when she wakes up, Annie's on the floor covered in rats. And
but moaning,
what's up?
like she's like moaning.
She
She's
yeah,
not
moaning, yeah. Which
like
once again,
it's
I think
just.
Count Orlok is just banging all these people in his in his dream world thing.
I mean, maybe, but like I said, it just didn't make sense to me. I know, like, but anyway.
Well, the weird thing too, like they had all the rats in the first one. He kind of resembles a rat, and he brings all the rats and the plague, and it's kind of like, for people back then, it was like they had the Spanish flu and stuff, and it was kind of like timely. But this one, he doesn't have any resemblance to the rat. Like, I get it's scary. Oh, he's bringing the plague, but there's no real reason for the rats. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain more than that, but
Well, there's a thing where they talk about how there's certain beasts or whatever that they control. Like wolves are one, rats are another, bats are
yeah,
stuff like that. So those rats that were that you're thinking of are just rats. They're actually him, right? It's
yeah,
like one of his powers.
yeah.
So,
Um, yeah, but I think is that the point where Kick-Ass kicks them out of the house after they,
yeah.
yeah, she gets all, yeah, and he's like, you guys need to leave. They have an argument where Lily Rose Depp is like, you never liked me and shit, which seemed kind of out of the blue. Like there was never a scene that seemed like they didn't get along. You know what I mean? She's like, you tied me up. And I was like, that seems like a weird thing to get mad at. Did you see what you were doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So
even the doctor was like, tie her up.
here's
Like,
the weird part of this, right? Is
uh,
that and how can I phrase this and not sound like a dick? If she was a better actress, that
yeah.
scene probably would have been a lot better because it was like she was at improv night and dude was fucking on Broadway, right?
Yeah,
Like,
she was like, you're going to die. We're all going to die.
and the guy was like, "Please speak my name."
Yeah,
Like, it
yeah.
was like the exact opposite. And I'm like, man, dude, kick ass. I'm
I
kind of a
don't.
fan, but
It just seemed like it was trying to add in unnecessary
drama, like issues.
drama or issue. Like there was never a point in the movie where I was like, oh, these people don't like each other. He was always very courteous. He was worried about her. There were a couple scenes where he was like, where he they would talk about something being wrong with her, and he would be like, she's just worried about Thomas. This is driven her. But yeah, there was never a scene where it was like,
He was a solid friend through and through.
yeah,
Like,
I don't know. Like, I don't even think the guy really wanted the money. Like, I think it was more Thomas was in that manly man mindset where he was like, no,
yeah,
I took this money. I got to pay him back. Like, I don't know. This is one of those things where it's we're the fucking guys who we watch Midsummer and the boyfriend. They try to be like, look at this fucking guy, piece of shit, right? And I'm like, no, he didn't seem that bad to me. And maybe there's another. I don't know. I didn't see it. I was like, I don't see where this is coming from.
I guess maybe dude was guilty of like flaunting his possessions in front of dude. I don't
I
know.
don't
Like,
know.
he seemed pretty solid. He seemed like a stand up guy. He took him in, took care of him, did all the stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
don't. He was like a great dad. He was like, staying with his kids so they'd
I
fall asleep
I
and not get scared.
I
Like,
don't I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, so he kicks them out of the house, and then the next night is when Kick-Ass is asleep with his wife, and he's like holding the gun in his
with a
hand,
gun.
which is
Yeah.
very weird because he the whole time he's like he doesn't believe in any of this demon shit or whatever, but we see him sleeping with the gun in his hand. So is that just how he sleeps, or is that like he's saying he doesn't believe in it, but he's like, let me keep this shit close, just in case.
Like
Uh,
up to this point, William Defoe has been like telling him shit, and he's like, "Yeah, get wrecked. I don't,
yeah.
no, stuff like that." So like, he's fighting it. He's the only one in the story who doesn't just fucking go along with
Which, to be
everything.
fair, I think before this night happened too is when, like, he was talking, and he's like, I kicked them out, and Willem Dafoe's like, you kicked them out, and and he's like, well, what is the cure, or how do we fix her, or whatever. And Willem Dafoe's like, I don't know. He's like, I've never faced him, face to face, and he's like, he doesn't know. He does.
Yeah, he got pissed at that. It was
Yeah,
like, this is our expert. This is who you go to. And
yeah.
who doesn't even know how to beat him. Like,
Um, yeah. So they're asleep. Count Orlok's shadow. I think that's when it goes over the town. It then goes over there when they're sleeping, and it like goes into his ear, and it's like, "Do not wake." And so the next thing you know, you hear his kids screaming, and the wife wakes up, and she tries to wake him up, but he's under dude's spell, so he doesn't wake up. So she takes the pistol, opens up the doorway, and it's just on her face, and she like screams. And I assumed that was all we were gonna get, but then no. Camera turns, and Count Orlok, there's a dead kid on the ground, and Count Orlok has the other one by the throat, and he's just draining her, and then he just throws her down like a wet sack, just throws her down, and yeah, Count Orlok kills both them kids, and then he goes up to her and he kills her, and then we cut to a funeral, which seemed weird to me. It seemed weird that they would be able to arrange that funeral that quick. Especially with everyone that's been dying, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's just how they did it back then. I'm used
well,
to.
no, like, how can I phrase? Dude was rich.
He was rich because he had his personal tomb and shit. Like,
Yeah, so like, they say money buys whatever, but
hmm,
like, I'm assuming that's what with the plague and everything. I think it's you either burn them or you bury them. Like it's
yeah,
so.
okay. But yeah, so they have a funeral. There's where they're like Lily Rose Depp and them are watching from a distance, and eventually he like turns around and sees them, and he comes over and he's so angry. There's a solid 3 lines of dialogue from him. I had no idea what he said. He came over. He
He was. I think it was like, "How dare you show yourself to me? You brought this into my home.
Yeah, but it
You
was
brought this upon me." And like, yeah, but it was good.
yeah. That was probably his best scene. And then dude shows him the bite. Nicholas Holt shows him the bite on his chest, and he's like, "It is real." And I was like, "Okay, why didn't y'all do that? If you had the bite on your chest, why didn't you show him that a while ago? But so he signs up to, help them out. They come up with this plan where they're gonna fucking go and hunt and find his coffin and kill him in his sleep. Uh, but Lily Rose Depp pulls Willem Dafoe to the side and lets him know that it has to be her that kills him. And so he's like, okay, so he'll keep up the charade of, we're going to look for dude. But in reality, it's all just to get her alone with him. And then this is one of the scenes that I felt like didn't need to happen. Is then they're getting ready to go, but Kick-Ass hasn't shown up, and they're like, "Where is he?" So they go looking for him, and we get a scene of him in the tomb where he like pushes back the coffin lid, and he's like holding his wife, and he like kisses her and stuff. I felt like that scene just tacked on unnecessary time. Like we could have just. It could have just been them looking for him, and then they find him like in the. I don't know. It just didn't feel like it needed to be there. That whole
I think they had
scene.
to show him blood cursed.
I guess,
You
because
could have done
yeah,
that
he
the
like
same
pukes
way.
up the blood.
You could have just showed him with the marks on his body and in a pool of blood or whatever. But,
Yeah,
yeah, like
I don't know. It just
again,
seemed unnecessary.
any movie past 2 hours is going to be criticized for all the little things,
Uh huh.
right? Like, and let's be fair, like I'm real bad about it, but there's a couple things there, like a couple scenic shots they didn't need to do, like in the forest in the early bit. I really enjoy them because I like locations and
Yeah.
like setting the scene.
No.
But to some people, they're like, yeah, it's fucking woods. Who cares? Right? Like,
Yeah.
when Thomas gets to the crossroad, which has always been like an established, meet the devil at the crossroads type thing,
Uh.
and he's in the middle of that, the crossroads, and he meets Warlock, whatever. Like, does that have like semblance or significance? Who knows? But that's what I
Yeah.
read into it. But a lot of people could be like, we didn't need to see this,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the whole chariot thing. I thought was cool as shit, but a lot of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
were like,
Super.
who cares? I'm
I
not a
like.
car
Yeah.
guy.
I liked how quiet everything was. Like the door opening was silent, and then he gets to the castle, and the door's opening or silent. Like
Yeah.
very. Yeah. I really liked all that.
And super eerie and all that, but a lot of people aren't going to see the nuance in that, and they're just not going to.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Again, this movie would have scored higher if I watched it at home and I could like pause it, take a piss, go get a
yeah.
bag of chips or whatever, you know. But
Uh huh.
I don't know. The theater wasn't full. It probably would have been a little bit better in my book too. But
Yeah. Yeah, so they go on their mission to find this coffin. They eventually find it. They open it up and immediately they stab down, but it's not Count Orlok. It is in fact the little fucking sidekick dude, the boss.
Aatrox or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like not,
Harley or I don't know.
yeah, and he's like and he's like stabbed, and that's when he's talking about he should have been the Rat King and shit, but Charlie Kelly, the Rat King, he should have been the Rat King. But all dude cares about is his wife or whatever, and he's like talking, and then I got a very big laugh out of it because he's talking about stuff, and then Willem Dafoe was like, "Die!" It comes with
He thinks he says something like, "Will you shut up?" or something.
yeah, and
Hammers
he hammers it in and kills him, and then he's like, "We must burn everything," and there's rats everywhere, and he's like throwing gasoline. This is when he's trying to get Nicholas Holt wants to leave to go to his wife, and Willem Dafoe is trying to get him to stay. And finally, Willem Dafoe is like, it has to be her. And he's like, you knew that Count Orlok wasn't going to be here. And he's like, she's the only one that can, kill him. So,
well, you brushed over it, but before this is when they had their conversation, William Defoe and Homegirl,
yeah,
about how in any other time, if this was like 500 years ago, she'd be like a priestess because she was
yeah,
so
yeah,
to everything, and how he's like, it's going to have to be you, and you're going to have to make a choice, blah blah blah.
yeah,
So like, it shows that William Defoe knows what's going on, and it's probably the reason why he can't figure out how to stop this because he can't, only she can.
yeah.
And it's pretty cool. But like again, William Defoe's character makes up 70% of this movie.
Yeah,
He's only in it for like 30 minutes.
something like that. Yeah. So the witch guy and Kick-Ass, they run to go back to Lily Rose Depp. Willem Dafoe, he's like throwing gas. He lights everything on fire. I told Tyler I was a little disappointed. There's a scene where he finally lights up like the whole room. He's like, he's like standing stretched out. And I wanted them to hold on that shot for a little longer. And they cut like immediately to the point that I told Tyler, I think maybe like they went too overboard on the fire. And they're like, put it out, put it out. But they cut like immediately. And I was a little disappointed. So meanwhile, as they're running, Lily Rose Depp has invited Count Orlok in. They try to recreate like the famous, like his shadow coming up the stairs, but it really didn't work for me. Like the stairs, like they kept going up, and it would like a floor would come up, so it would go black, and then you would see more of the shadow. And I don't know, it just didn't. It didn't work for me, especially how cool the original is. But she invites Count Orlok in. Count Orlok is like, you do this of your own free will. And she was like, yeah, I do. And so he was like, okay,
That
we will have sex. No. Yeah. So he's like, now we must meet with the flesh. And so they get naked. And, yeah, Count Orlok and the chick bang. He bites her on the heart. He's like he's like just gripping titties and biting fucking heart meat and shit. And he's like drinking from her. And the whole thing, which I remember in the original, it was she invites Count Orlok. She like, I don't even remember if she kisses him, but she's pretending like she's gonna kiss him. And the whole thing is a ruse to wait for sunlight to come up. And then Count Orlok's like, and he fucking dies or whatever. So I was like, okay, that's what she's doing. So they bang, and then the sun comes up, and I really liked it was like, Bill Skarsgård kind of had a look on his face where it was like, who knows how long it's been since that guy's seen the sun? You know what I mean? And he kind of had a look where he wasn't even mad, really, that he had been duped. He was just kind of like, oh. He was like, I remember that. That's how the sun looks, and it's probably been thousands of years since he's seen her or whatever. And then he kind of like looks back at her, and she kind of like nods her head, and then he's just fucking like, and like starts coughing up all this blood and shit. And she kind of just holds him. Like it was a weirdly like oddly dark romantic scene. Like I kind of feel like at the end she had a little bit of where she was like, I unknowingly like awoke this dude and then tricked him into coming here, and I don't know, I had a lot of weird feelings about his death or whatever. But yeah, he bunch of blood comes out, he like shrivels, kind of like a leech with no blood in it, uh and then Willem Dafoe and everyone come in, and she's laying there dying, and kick ass, like not kick ass.
She's already dead.
Well, she looks at Thomas when he comes in. And he like holds her hand, and she dies. And then I felt like the movie, like I had two feelings on it. Is I felt like one, Willem Dafoe had to say what just happened because they were like, I feel like the audience is going to be a little confused. And two, I feel like that is a line straight out of the book. Like I think I'm going to read the book, and I feel like that where he's like, and so the lady sacrificed herself to slay Count Orlok or whatever. He's like laying flowers down on the bed, and then we get a top-down shot of Count Orlok like laying on her, and there's blood everywhere, and they're both dead. And then we cut to black, and that's the end of the movie.
So there's a weird foreshadowing when Thomas has to leave and he brings her flowers. And
Yeah.
goes, why would you kill anything this beautiful? And he was like, what do you mean? I just got your flowers so I have to leave. And she was like, why would something this beautiful have to die? And then, I don't know if you noticed, but at the end, it was the same flowers.
Same flowers, yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know if the whole like moral or there's like an aspect there to where they're like sometimes beautiful things have to die to cure, to stop evil things or whatever. But it's like, you have to harvest the flowers to end your sadness, kind of thing. But like I said, I don't know if that was intentional or just me reading into shit. But
I don't know. I told Tyler before the movie started, I almost leaned over to him and was like, "Oh, cool. We're gonna get a Robert Eggers movie with a happy ending." Because that's never all his movies like end with almost everyone dead. In some cases, everyone's dead. And this one, because I remember the first one, I remember like they kill Count Orlok and it's like happy ending or whatever. And now I feel like once again I'm gonna read the book, I think, but I feel like it's one of those like where the
I don't know if this is based on a book.
It is. It's a book.
I don't know. Like I said, I didn't realize. I thought it was all just a movie.
Yeah.
Some dude wrote it.
No, everything from the dawn of time has been just a rehash of old stuff.
Robert Eggers is given credit for writing this movie, which I think is a little far-fetched.
Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely wrote stuff. But yeah, so I don't know if maybe it's one of where like, the fairy tales back in the day used to be way darker and they've changed to be like nice and stuff. I don't know if it's one of those deals where the book, that's how it ends. Like I said, I kind of feel like that line of dialogue from Willem Dafoe is ripped straight from the book.
From it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get a happy ending, because I was looking forward to it, because this guy never gives us happy endings. And I was like, okay, after all the stuff that these people are going through, I was looking forward to the end where they're like, and it's over. But no, then he's dead. This guy's whole fucking, his friends, his friend's wife, their kids are dead. Yeah, I don't know. It was the one time that I really felt duped on a kind of downer ending.
I don't know, like Thomas lived.
Yeah, but is he really alive?
He's probably like the head dude at the realty place now. Like,
that's how you gotta look at it.
Yeah, Thomas will be fine.
Yeah.
So like the doctor's fine. William Dafoe is a little more vindicated. Like these aren't like real triumphs, but they're personal gain. I don't know. But I mean, it's I don't want to be that guy, but in life, there's rarely happy endings, right? Like
I guess, but this is a movie.
sometimes things work out, but
I don't know. I don't know. I came in excited because I was like, okay, not excited, but I was like, I know at the end of this, you know, it all works out. But then it didn't. But anyway, that was Nosferatu. So there you go. That that happened. I liked it better than the first one.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it was pretty decent.
I saw a
Like in comparison.
I saw a picture today of a guy. He had taken a screenshot of watching Nosferatu, and he had turned up the volume to 100, and he had typed on it, "I can't hear shit." Yeah, I thought that was very funny, but yeah, that's Nosferatu. Like I said, I really liked it. I'll probably watch it again when it comes out, uh, and see how things have if my opinions on it change. Uh, Third favorite. So I guess we could my list 4 to number 1. At the bottom is the Witch, and then it's Nosferatu, and then it's the Northman, and then it's the Lighthouse. How's your order going for the Robert Eggers movies so far?
I really like The Northman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'd have to watch the podcast to see what I gave it.
I think you give it a 10.
Yeah, so to me, The Northman was almost a perfect movie. Uh, I'm gonna have to go Northman, Lighthouse, Witch, and then whatever. And the only reason I'm saying The Witch is better because goddamn, it's a boring movie.
It is a boring movie.
And this is retrospect, so no one call me a perv, but I just love Homegirl. I think she's a phenomenal actress.
Yeah, like I said, that's maybe the main reason this movie felt a little weird to me is it was the first time that I didn't like a lot of the performances. Like all the other movies, like I remember, yeah, and Anya Taylor Johnson is great in the North. Anya Taylor Joy.
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is
Yeah,
Johnson?
Taylor Johnson is Aaron Taylor Johnson's the guy in this movie, Kick Ass or whatever.
So here's my thing, and you can agree to disagree. Who's the main character of this movie?
Lily Rose Depp.
Right, and why would you not go with Homegirl in that role if you had her, if she was available? Like, I feel like when you cast not necessarily a no name, but a risky actress in the main fucking role, you're taking that chance because
Yeah,
if William Dafoe was the main character of this, you could have filled in all the other roles with like whoever you wanted, and he would have carried it, and everyone would have been a little worse in comparison. But when she's the one who's pretty much has interactions with every single fucking cast member, she's going to kind of be put against them. Like, and I'm just curious to how many takes and how many reshoots and how many things they did because it was just weird and awkward. But like I said, you can't actors and actresses and just thespians in general can't go into it and be like, man, that movie is hard to make because fucking Homegirl stinks, But like 10 years later, you'll get that right. You'll get or like Fast and Furious shit, where it's like, I can't believe Vin Diesel or in the Rock fighting or whatever.
Yeah.
So you'll never know, and fucking most people are genuinely nice and realize folks are trying. But if someone just doesn't perform well, and like especially a period piece like this, it's very noticeable. Like I don't know if Kick-Ass Guy was actually good in this, or he just was good enough. Because Beast from X-Men and Homegirl like kind of shit the bed in my opinion.
Yeah, it's the first time like the leads of the movie I felt like I was like neither one of these are very good.
So, and like I said, maybe that's why William Dafoe, the fucking doctor, sidekick, or Kick-Ass, they all seemed okay, or pretty good in comparison. But again, maybe it was the amount of dialogue. Maybe Thomas, Homegirl, and Orlok just were on the screen so fucking much that any other version or any other timeline just seemed enjoyable because it was like finally a break, from just the nonsense. But again, I understand her daddy's famous, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a good actress, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder who her mom is. It's got to be someone else famous, right? Because I imagine Johnny Depp is probably banging some famous chick.
I'm
Let's see.
not
Oh,
sure.
she was born the same year I was. That makes me feel bad.
But
Vanessa
she's
Paradis,
never heard of her.
French singer and model. There you go.
Glad we figured that out.
Yeah. Um,
But
I
like I said, it's not a bad movie. I think would I give it a 6?
6. Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
that's
a
just
passing.
because
Yeah, that's passing grade.
I'm and that's a little critical because I feel like a lot of people use sex to sell and so on and so forth, and it to me it's kind of a cop out. It's kind of like whatever. I mean, but it works. Let's be honest. Like, but again, I like more substance than I do just whatever. But that being said, like if something's like Interstellar was just a fantastic, amazing movie. Story wasn't all that great, right? But it just the visuals and the scenarios and stuff really made you think. No one was like, "Man, that Matthew McConaughey, great conversationalist," because like half his lines in that movie with what's her name, Anne Hathaway,
Yeah, I think so.
like weren't great. But that movie was just so fucking stunning. But anyways, like I don't know. I think if they had a better leading lady, that this movie would have been an easy 8 out of 10. But for most people, it's already an 8 out of 10. So like,
Hmm.
if you had someone else in there, it might have been a little bit better.
Yeah. By the way, I looked it up. The entire run of The Northman, it made $69 million worldwide. Had an $80 million budget. This movie, in its opening weekend, has crossed 40 million. So, it seems like it's gonna break The Northman.
But that's you can't really go off box office anymore because no one really goes to the movies. I mean, how many times do we go to movies on opening day and it's fucking empty theater?
A lot, yeah.
But like, I don't know how to look up other metrics, like, because I'm sure if you look at Northman versus like streaming and the DVD sales and such like that,
Uh,
that it did pretty well. That being said, I see it in the $10 bin all the time.
I don't think anyone watched that movie. It seems like the
It's
one that really fell under the to the side of for his filmography.
which is cool. I mean, like I said, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I'm glad we're all in agreement that Robert Eggers is by far better than Ari Aster, and Ari Aster has been a letdown since he made Hereditary. So I'm glad we're all in
I
enjoyment.
don't know. I have to look at more of
Glad
his
we're
films.
all in enjoyment.
And
Enjoyment?
enjoyment. I
Anyway.
sent you a fucking thing on Facebook or whatever, where it's like you probably didn't click it because you're a jerk. But it was like I think it's like what is this? Like people can agree nothing's more funnier than when one of your friends says the wrong word
Yeah.
barely. And I was like, oh, that's fucking Tom
Yeah.
all day, every day. But that being said, I don't know Ari Aster. I gotta look up his filmography and see what he's done.
Hereditary, Midsummer, and Beau is Afraid.
Oh man, those are 3 really good movies.
No. Um.
Which one did I mean? Okay, so you didn't like Midsummer, but
Yeah.
take that out of the. You didn't like Bo is Afraid.
Beau is Afraid is fine for like an hour, and then as soon as it gets to
The
uh
park in the woods or
the
whatever.
park in the woods and the
The
play and
play. Yeah.
it's downhill from that point on. Um. But yeah. So,
Can
well,
we agree that it's not a competition and they would be good? You're like, no, no. There's only
no.
one guy. Because
Well,
like,
they bring those two up together all the time because they're the new like two big, horror guys. So
it's a toss up. I don't know which one I prefer.
yeah, I do. We by the way, to take us out here, we bought these horror trivia cards,
Oh, mine are in the car.
and yeah, we were gonna do a thing where there's a lot of them, so we weren't gonna do all of them, but we could do episodes on them where we do. But by the way, this was the first card that was on the front, and I asked you what type of virus is unleashed in the 2016 movie Train to Busan.
Coronavirus.
Okay, and what 2014 horror comedy is about beavers becoming zombies?
Beavergeddon.
All right. So the answers. So the first one is Zombievers. Okay, for
Oh,
the beaver zombie ones.
may have
And then
missed
me
that
and you
one.
were like, okay, well, there's zombies in Train to Busan. What is the virus called? The answer, zombie virus. So there you
All
go.
right, throw that card away.
Yeah.
Just throw it in the
So
trash.
here you go. Let me see. Let me find you.
Where
That
did we
one's
buy these? Was it the
uh
bookstore?
bookstore. Yeah. Uh,
Over two so far.
the man, these are really easy.
Oh
All right,
yeah, come on,
I'll give
baby.
you an easy one, and then we'll do. Okay, who wrote and directed A Nightmare on Elm Street?
Wes Craven.
Correct.
Nice.
And how many murderers are revealed at the end of the movie Scream?
Two.
Correct.
But should be more because Sydney kills him, so I guess there's actually three
Yeah.
murders.
Uh.
But okay, murder doesn't count apparently in modern society.
Okay. Here we go. I actually know the answer to both of these. Number one, this HBO TV series was based on the novels by Charlene Harris, featuring a telepathic waitress named Sookie Stackhouse.
Is it True Blood?
Correct. It's True Blood. And then what 1986 horror movie features cameos from Ozzy Osbourne and Gene Simmons?
What year?
1986.
I thought it's cameos from Ozzy and fucking Gene Simmons. And
Yeah.
it's a horror flick.
Correct.
Fuck. What's that one where it's like Psychodrome or Melodrome or something?
Yeah, it's not
I
that
don't know the
one.
answer. I have no clue.
It was Trick or Treat.
Really?
Yeah, there you go.
You realize Ozzy was in that?
Yeah, you're
That-
thinking of a different Trick or Treat.
Oh, I'm thinking of the one with the little kid with the
Correct.
bag on his head.
This is
Oh.
one that doesn't have that. All right. Yeah. So anyway, we have these. A lot of them are pretty easy, which is a shame. Here's
Well, they're
what
easy
what
because it's us.
what
or-
movie stars professional wrestler Roddy Piper as a drifter who discovers a box of special sunglasses?
Oh, I can't ever remember the name. They Live.
That's right.
I can't ever remember the name of that, even though I try to think of it every time.
So anyway, we have those. We'll mess with those some point.
Did you see that video I sent you about Roddy Piper talking about Santa Claus?
Yeah.
That was wild. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
He's a crazy
I was
guy.
like, cocaine.
Yeah, that's probably yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there you
RIP.
go. That is the last podcast of the year. Nosferatu. Boy, this light got really bright. I was back, but now I'm just a ghost. Nosferatu. Happy New Year. Links to Letterboxd and Game Channel and all that is in the bottom. I'm going to put the
man.
link to the Nosferatu episode, the original. And coming up, I don't know what. Maybe we'll do an episode of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
So good. It's a little long. But
Yeah.
it's
I
the
also
only movie I like Winona Ryder in.
I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm looking forward to that movie with that the Barbarian guy made with Jack Quaid, fucking Huey from The Boys, who's in it. And I'm sure we'll
I
probably
love
go
that
watch
Barbarian
that.
movie so much.
yeah.
Like,
Barbarian's still not available on Blu-ray. It's just nowhere.
Really?
Yep, you can only watch it on Max. They never put out a physical copy of it.
we're going to have to Google this.
So eventually that movie will be lost to time because they'll take it off of streaming. It'll be like 28 Days Later where it went forever where you couldn't watch it because they took it off of all streaming and they weren't making DVDs of it. So, yeah. But anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye.